Obi-Doo is everyone's favorite boomer and vintage lens enthusiast, and today we're going to look at the Asaya Optical Code Japan SMC Pentax 1 to 2.5 135. This is a K-mount lens, and it's on the K200D. What can I say about this lens? It's beautiful. The build quality is fantastic build quality. I mean, it's all metal construction. It has a rubberized focusing ring. Unfortunately, these DSLRs think this thing hanging over is cool, but it blocks your seeing your F numbers. So it has it's a manual F numbers. This is a fantastic lens. They went up in price. They used to be reasonable, like close to $100, a little over $100, and now they're way over $100. So I don't know what's up with that. Pentax actually makes two of these. One is called the Takamar Bayonet, and it's made in Taiwan. I'm going to do a review of that separately, but they're very close in build quality. And they're very close optically. Oh, this one's slightly superior based on my tests. So, the K200D, what can I say about it? It has trouble with wide-angle lenses or small apertures, and certain lenses like zooms or big apertures too. Because, as I stated many times before, there's for the manual focus, they have a focus confirmation LED lights up in the viewfinder. It's a green hexagon shaped indicator. Plus you get a beep, and it puts a red dot in manual mode. It's always the center dot. A red dot lights up, but you gotta actually go by the green indicator focus confirmation. So I went to the park on the 10th. No, the 9th of February, and it was a sunny day, although there were some clouds momentary blocking the sun, so it was cloudy bright, and it was late in the afternoon, around 3:30 or 4 o'clock or something like that, and it was about 35 degrees, maybe 38 max, and I just walked through the park. This is the only lens I had with me, although I did bring a point and shoot with me in case I wanted to get a wide angle shot of something, but I never used it. Of course, with this lens, you either have to back up or move forward like you do with any fixed prime lens. And all right, this has a shallow depth of field. If you look at this, even if you stop down to f32, look at that, goes to f32. Maybe you could get to 30 feet. And notice at f11, maybe you could get to 35 feet. F8, forget it. F8, you're only going to get to 100 feet. So you got to keep that in mind. You got to think shallow depth of field when you go out, even in bright sunlight. I shoot ISO 400. I see F8 or F11. And my subjects, I try to keep them as flat as possible. This thing compresses perspective anyway, these type of lenses. But if I was taking pictures of some leaves on the branch, I didn't want the branch pointing too like this at me. I wanted something more like this. And this way, the depth of field covered it. And since at 135, I didn't have to get close. You know, I could stay back and get more area in. Well, they did do some close-ups. I stepped in the shade, and I took a picture of a wall wide open at f2.5, and you could see that. Another thing I did was, even at 135, well, I couldn't get close enough to the subject. And as I always say, I always do a full frame resize. I do a 16:9 full frame crop, resize it to 1920 by 1080 to fit this movie format. But then what I also did, I make a 1920 by 1080 mask, and I cut out a full frame corner, and then so it's an A and B thing. But on a couple shots, I actually went to 1600 100 by 900, so I could get a tighter crop, and then I resized it to 1920 by 1080, and the image actually held together and didn't get blocky. That was the seagull, which you'll be seeing. Plus, I did one extreme example. I did at 800 by 600 cut or something like that, and then I resized that, and of course that started to show some noise and blockiness. But it's possible to do that. Use this only 10 megapixel sensor, but I was able to get away with it. And well, you'll see the results anyway. So it has great color. It has excellent micro contrast, image quality, everything. I mean, this is another key lens. Pentax made a bunch of fantastic prime lenses in their day, and this is one of them. So if you want to have a kit, and I mentioned this before also, you would have this 135 2.5, right? You have the 50 millimeter f2 or 1.7 or whatever they make, or 55 f2 or 1.7 or 1.8, 1.9, and then you'd have the 28 millimeter 2.8, and then you have this great kit. Unfortunately, these series of cameras don't seem to like wide-angle lenses. I popped a 24 millimeter on here, and I got crappy results, but it works good on mirrorless cameras, so what could I say? But I had no trouble with the focus confirmation in this lens. In fact, I got like 100% hits, and only 3 times when I got blurry pictures was I forgot to focus. I was in a hurry and just blasted a couple pictures, and I said, oh no. And it was a bird, and he flew away, and I couldn't retake it. So those are not in the slideshow following. But that's amazing, you know. This lens worked completely 100% with the focus confirmation in this camera. And sometimes it was bright sunlight, and even looking in the viewfinder, I was having trouble seeing the green focus confirmation, and I just went by the beep, and I got really good results. So these cameras seem to like lenses with longer focal length. I had a 28 to 80 millimeter zoom, and it worked fantastic at 80 millimeters, but not so good at the shorter end. I have 24 to 50 millimeter f4 Pentax A zoom, and I was getting inconsistent results with the autofocus confirmation, but I could hit the focus all the time on a mirrorless camera. So that's not to say these cameras are useless. It's just that this is the way they're designed. I don't know. All I know is that this lens is a good combo with this body, and it takes excellent pictures, and the build quality is beautiful. Made in Japan. You could get these, well, I don't know if the prices are going up or not. That's the thing. I can't actually say what's happening with these things. Is the price of gear going up? Who could say? I guess anyone who's got one, they're holding on to them. Then if you want to get one, there's less of them about, or maybe there's crappy examples. I can't say. All I know is that I'm glad I got this lens. It takes wonderful pictures. I'm going to do some more photo shoots with it. This is only a country photo shoot. I didn't have a chance to do a town yet, but I'm probably going to go to one of my favorite towns and do a town photo shoot, see how it handles there. But I like this lens. It's beautiful. I highly recommend this lens. And of course, if it works good on this camera, it's going to work even better on a mirrorless camera, where you could really nail the focus. And like I said, f8, f11, and then f2.5. That's all I used. So let's get right into the pictures and see what they're all about. Center crop means that I didn't show you the whole picture. I just did a center crop for brevity. I upsampled these 2 birds. Notice that there isn't an A, B, or any note here, so that means I just didn't do anything. This is a down sample. So what I did is I didn't do a 920 by 1080 crop. I did a bigger crop and then I down sampled it to fit this screen. See, these are just center crops where I didn't show you the whole picture. So what's my philosophy? My philosophy is take pictures or die. And since these vintage lenses are so cheap and they're readily available, I figure I would just, get them and add them to my collection and try them out and then see what's what with these lenses. And guess what? You get to see what's what with these lenses. You could look at this photo slideshow here and say, wow, the Pentax, the SMC Pentax 2.5 135, that's a great lens. And it is. It's a really nice lens. I highly recommend it. I was very pleased with it. But then I always keep saying that a well-corrected prime lens should expect it to be perfect. But this thing really nails it. I like the way it had the ripples in the water and how it distorted everything. I shot a lot of pictures like that. And here's a strong backlight. You know, there's the sun is glinting off the water and through these reeds, and it looked really good. I just like the way the colors. Of course, colors are the lens, but it's also the camera too. It's like a both synergistic relationship. So this wilderness area is close to my house, and I could go there and I could take photos and to demonstrate, the depth of field of these lenses, the field of view, what you would expect. And this is all done for your benefit, so you can make an informed decision about, do you want to get this lens? Now, it looked to me like it was a slightly overexposing the highlights a little bit. And I brought the highlights down on a lot of pictures. I don't know why it was doing that. Usually, when I don't know if you noticed, but when I was, we had the camera and lens combo, and we were looking at it, there's a green button right next to where the shutter button was. Well, when you're in manual mode, when you push that button, it does a shutter read for you. So you could set the aperture to anything, and then it just sets the shutter for you automatically. All the other lenses, they seem to work pretty good. This one just seemed to, the highlights were just a little too bright. Now also, I was using ISO 400, and at f8 and f11 under these lighting conditions, I was using like a 1000, 1250, 2000 of a second, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't get any motion blur. I wanted to eliminate motion blur, so that wasn't part of the equation. You know, so why is it blurry? Well, it wasn't from motion blur of the camera, and since it's a longer lens, I wanted to just eliminate that. Oh yes, it has a shake reduction in the camera, but why add that to the mix? I mean, if you completely eliminate it, then we can say if this lens is sharp or not sharp just based on that. And you know, it's really, really sharp. And it's got excellent bokeh. If you look at the background blur, it's not busy. It's, they look normally out of focus. So when you have your foreground or your background, depending on what you're doing, or the background and the foreground could be blurred, and you could have just a middle in focus, and it looks really, really natural. You know, it looks photographic. I mean, like from the film days. That's what I liked about this lens. And I like the way it captured the water, the ripples in the water. It's just a really nice lens. I would really strongly recommend anyone get this lens. I mean, if you're going to get into vintage photography, this is one of the lenses you want to get. Now, most cheap 135 2.8, there are 4 elements, usually in 2 groups. They're optical construction, but this thing I think had 7 elements. And the Takumar bayonet, which is very similar to this lens, I think that only had 6 elements. So they all the aberrations are well corrected, exceptionally well corrected. Now, I just want to point out, say this is a left side crop. I didn't show you the whole picture, so we zoomed up on some detail in this picture. Okay, now we have an A. The A means this is the full frame resized, 16 by 9 resized. And then the B is just a 920 by 1080. I just pulled out of that because it fits into this movie format. So you're getting like a overview of the picture, and then where are you going to get your worst results is off to the side or one of the corners. And this thing holds up really well. Now this is made for a full frame 35mm film, so you'd expect that on a crop sensor you shouldn't see anything, but that's neither here nor there. We've already seen on other lenses where there's soft in the corners on a crop sensor for a full frame film lens, which I find scary. But this thing behaved itself admirably. Now remember, I used f8, f11, and I took some pictures at f2.5 wide open because I could. You step in a shade, it's somewhat darker, then I hit the green button and the camera picks some shutter speed, and then we're good to go. And I just kept an eye on that to keep I think the slowest shutter speed I used was 1/500th of a second. If you look at nature, there's a lot of sharp edges, but there's no regular patterns really. It's sort of all random patterns. And then you could test what is this camera's algorithm. How does it, compress in a JPEG? How does it sharpen up? And I was doing some tests with my Pentax DSLRs, which is the 100, the 200, and the KR. And when I do the sharpening routine, you go on the menu and make it sharper or less sharper. I can't tell that it's doing anything. So I don't know what that means. But I'm a Canon guy, and even a Canon of the same megapixel and the same time frame seems to have a better image processing engine in it. Now I'm saying that these Pentax cameras aren't bad. Here's wide open. This is wide open in the center, and here's an edge, a corner. I went to the corner, and look at that. That is excellent for f2.5. Here's another shot. I did 2 shots to the wall, different spots. Wide open again. And it's a teeny weeny, little bit soft all the way in the upper left-hand corner, but just a teeny weeny bit. And that could have been because maybe I wasn't exactly perpendicular to that wall. There's a lot of walls there from the ancient astronauts, what they were doing their thing. It must have been their headquarters or something. So they had all these walls that they built. You don't think that primitive human beings could have done this with their brute force, and that is the ancient astronauts. Same thing with the branches and stuff. I tried to keep the branch as perpendicular to the camera as I could, because if the branch was at a more oblique angle pointing at me or away from me, then you'd only have to catch a thin slice of focus, and it would be further away out of focus and nearer out of focus. Of course, some branches are three-dimensional, and of course you're going to get some of that. Here's a perfect example where I tried to stay perpendicular to this so I could get a good focus over the whole thing. Of course, I wasn't exactly perpendicular, but I was hoping that the depth of field would cover me. And then, this is clouds are tough pictures to take with a telephoto, really. And I was shooting towards the sun. Now, I didn't have a lens hood. It didn't come with a built-in lens hood, although the Takamura bayonet has a built-in lens hood. Look at the sharpness of these branches. That's excellent. I mean, it's not fuzzy or blurry or anything. It's all nice and sharp. Now, I find that the Pentax DSLRs, they have trouble with pine needles. Like, you can see how sharp the branches are, but all the pine needles are fuzzy. Like, this doesn't resolve all the individual needles. It just like fuzzes it. And I think that's from the JPEG algorithm, how it compresses it. Of course, then, if you have an extended object, it's easier to pick out. Now, here's where I did 800 by 600, and I upscaled it. And you can see it's just getting blotchy there, but it wasn't too bad. So at any rate, if you have an extended object, you get better resolution, even if it's a very thin, and it's, now here, 16 by 900, I resized it to 1920 by 1080, and these look really good. Really, really good. You couldn't tell that I enlarged this image. It's excellent. This one I didn't. This is center crop only. I had this bird, he was flying around, and he dove into the water. I guess he caught something, but I couldn't catch him. You know, he's just too quick for me. But then he flew around, and I got some really excellent shots. I mean, this is a fantastic lens. You got to get one. You know, if you want to get serious in photography, you could use this. Now remember, this camera is only 10 megapixels, and I was able to do a minor, like so we say, a crop zoom effect. So that's a fantastic. That's saying something for that camera too. This is all strong backlight. You know, the sun was just slightly off to the side, and it was strongly backlit as opposed to front lit. But look at the branches, how sharp they are, and unaberrated, no straight. Yeah, here's another one. This robin, I kept like sneaking up on him, but he always kept flitting away. So what I did, I did a upscale crop on him. You should really get this lens. It's a really good lens. I highly recommend it.